Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Danke. Gracias. Mucho. That was my team. And we are born to rise. And you got to see some of the fun we're looking to have. It is my honor and my privilege to serve as your international president of the Optimist International Organization. And it is my personal privilege to be your first Generation X president of Optimist International. And I can tell you that no one in this room is more surprised about me being here than my parents. My mom will tell you that I probably should have been the pessimist president because I'm pessimistic, perfectionistic, and just an all-around good kid. And my mom's here, but she's in the building, but she can't be here today because I want to tell you about my mom. My mom had gallbladder surgery on Wednesday, and she made it in here, but she can't be here today. But she's got that ability to tell me, she goes, you never give up. Whatever you do, you press and you do everything with everything you got. And so my mom is that kind of person. But I do have my dad with me here today. And this is Jim Garner, not the famous Jim Garner, but the most famous Jim Garner to me, down here on the front row. This is my dad, Jim. Dad has trained me well. Growing up, he took me to the Rotary meetings every week. I got my choice when I got out. I picked Optimist because, hey, why not? You're Optimist. But Dad also is the guy who taught me how to be an optimist because every time you ask my dad, has he got any problems? He says, I have no problems in the world that $2 million couldn't handle. Therefore, I got no problems. This is my dad, Jim Garner. I appreciate him and I love him for being here today. Just a minute. For those who don't know, I've been a member. This is my 20th year in Optimism. I joined Optimism at the age of 25, and it has been a great and wonderful opportunity for me. Along the ways, I've had great leadership opportunities. And because of those leadership opportunities and being an optimist, as many of you guys know, I have an extended family. And my extended family is also down here on the front row with Beverly and Roddy Ryan. Roddy is our club secretary-treasurer. He missed 3 months of being the charter secretary-treasurer, and we are now celebrating our 50th year. 49 years, Roddy Ryan, my adopted parents, Roddy and Beverly, right there. And next to them, the dearest people we have in our lives, Al and Diane Clark. Al is the vice president-elect, and they're taking well care of us. And so I appreciate them. They also have grown up with us. And because of them, and because of Optimism, I actually got to meet this beautiful lady here to my right. Patsy and I met while we were lieutenant governors trying to be number one. I won. And I also won her, so I got a double prize. My wife, Patsy Garner, a leader in her own right with Optimism, she is basically the reason we are here today. A couple years ago, she said, she came home, she said, I decided what I want to be. I said, what's that? I want to be First Lady. I asked her if there was somebody else in her life. But this is a team effort. And we met through Optimism. And so I have to thank Optimism for bringing me the love of my life and my extended family with the 6 grandchildren and 4 children that we have sharing amongst us. Thank you, Optimism, and thank you, Patsy. It's interesting, we found out that we are not the only optimists who met through Optimism, or couples. If you met your spouse, the person you like, the person you may be sitting by in an intimate way, through Optimism, would you stand real quick? Look at this. I want you to look at this. You know what this tells us? We're going to start next year the Optimatch program. And if you've got single friends out there, you tell them to join an Optimist club because we may have that person for them. So we have been very blessed, and watch for the February magazine to come out that will have something about connections through optimism. It's going to jump right in here with one of the things that most people ask. Every year they go, "Hey, Ken, what's the slogan? What's your theme?" Guys, we have one theme, one slogan of Optimist International, and that is Optimist, bringing out the best in kids. That is our slogan. That is our motto. That is what we do. There you see a little bit slightly different. It's an emphasis. It's an emphasis on the best. Le meilleur. Lo meilleur. The best. That is something we're going to stress this year because that is something I believe should be inherent in every one of our Optimist clubs. And in doing that, I went backwards. And in doing that, we are instituting something this year. And we're not just instituting it this year, we're instituting it right now. We're going to start having an Optimist Club of the Year. Now, I already know that I belong to the absolute best Optimist Club in Optimist International, the Breakfast Optimist Club of East Fort Worth. I at least got a few heckles, and I appreciate that because I'd hope some of you other people would go, "Are you kidding me? My club is the best." My club is the best. Yeah. And you think about it, we have this argument quietly every year. Now, we all do good work. But this year we are actually challenged by a young man, age 30, who basically, we were building a club in Collin County, Texas. This is a young man who was a Joy member, and he said, "I want to build a club. I've been telling you I was going to build a club, and I want to build a club." First question he asked Patsy is, "How does our club get to be Optimist Club of the Year?" And she was like, "Oh, well, we have a district." He goes, "No, I'm talking about of the world." Braun, stand up a second. This is Braun Austin Deal right here, one of our charter club members, charter president, 30 years old right there. This is our future and this is our present right now. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Braun. He's got 3 names. I always mess him up. Braun Austin Deal. But through that, we've actually put into place an Optimist Club of the Year. We will, in New Orleans next year, the last event, we'll be recognizing that club. One. To get there, though, we're going to have 8, 1 per region. And that goes into effect now. You don't have to do anything different except submit. And I want to show you real quick, these are how we're going to judge the points. The most points on the project will be because of the service projects we do for our kids. Optimist clubs do service projects. We're going to identify them. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, "So do I got to do 30 projects to do 30 points?" And I tell them, nope. You do one great project, you will get those 30 points. If you could put handicapped kids on the moon, make sure they got oxygen, but if you could put handicapped kids on the moon, you ought to get 30 points because you've done something great. And then through that, we're also going to look at something else, our member development. How many in this room have already benefited in their leadership skills, in their personal skills, some of us in our interrelation skills, by being part of Optimism? Anybody benefited? That's right. We need to give to our members a value. We need to develop our members. So we're going to give points for the way you develop your members. The next one, community awareness. The big joke out there, the big story out there is that we are the best kept secret in the world. Anybody like being a secret? That's like a mistress or something like that. It's just not right. It's time that the world knows about optimism. It's time that the world knows we do good work and we want kids to participate in our good work. And so we need to basically be focusing in our communities as well as internationally. And I've got a great marketing committee coming in with Rebecca Butler-Mona heading that up again. And with some good people that we're going to be pushing things down for you to be using as well as us, that people recognize us. And this is one of the ways we're going to help judge this project. The last two, increase your volunteer base, new community efforts. New community efforts, it's new club building. It's also Joy Club building. I see you, Giovanni. And it's also making sure we take care of the ones we start, that we keep them going. You get a club started, you push it through, you get those points on there. And I'm going to tell you the other thing. Optimist members, St. Louis, our leadership, we're not judging. We're going out to the community. We're going to try to go out to our insurance agencies, our insurance companies that support us, our sponsors that basically help sponsor our golf program, and the other places. And just a secret, the U.S. Navy wants to start working with us, guys. The U.S. Navy wants to start working with us. We'll see if they can't be one of our judges on this so that we have an independent concept, because we're looking for the best of Optimist clubs, and we'll note them by region. So we are pressing for the best, to recognize the best, and that we all learn from the best as we keep going forward. Yesterday, Jack Canfield pointed out something to us. He said, you got to have a goal. It's got to have a goal, it's got to be pointed out, and it's got to be identifiable with a target in mind. A lot of times we talk about this organization, we say we want to grow. That's great. What does that mean? We got a target. This is my target. I'm hoping that the board and some others will pick us up. That's our goal. 100 for 100. What does that mean? In 2019, we will have our 100th convention. We should have 100,000 members of Optimist International by the time we get to 2019, and vital in this community and in this project. 100,000 members by the year 100 of our convention. Now, some of you guys are going to look at this. Here's the accountant in me. Is it reasonable? 100 for 100. That's a big number, especially when you think about that right there. We currently stand, a couple days ago, at 72,062 members. 72,062. Now, the positive of that, we have 72,062 members who believe that bringing out the best in kids is what we do and should do, and they continue to do it. So we should celebrate those people. All we're talking about is maybe some more, some significant more, because you put that number up there, 27,938. That's a big number. 5 years. So basically, break it down, that means that we need approximately 5,600 members a year. There's 72,000 of us. It's not that bad when you start putting in the numbers. But I'm an accountant. I always go to the other side. What about drops? We know that we will probably have drops. If we handle drops at about 8% a year, we'll probably lose about the same number that we need to gain to hit our target by the year 2019. That means that we need to recruit 11,000 members a year. That's a big number. But guess what? We're optimists. And guess what else? That just means that 1 out of 6 of our members has to recruit 1 member a year. I'm not talking about each one of our members. Actually, if you sat right there and you look down the row, you could count every 6 members and go, I can bring in 1. If somebody else on this row will bring in 1 more, I'll hit my 1 out of 6. But now remember, we're smaller than our organization. 1 out of 6. If somebody brings in 2, Russ Thomas, we will basically be exceeding that amount, right? 1 out of 6. We're not talking about every single member. Now, that would be great. But just 1 out of 6. But what if? What if? We're looking for next year. You need 11,000 members somewhere, right? What if we had 100 new clubs? Not between September 30th and October 1st. I'm talking about this convention and next year's convention. That removes all gameplay. that removes stashing and slashing. And it simply puts us into this number. That's 2,000 members. We're on our way. What if our retention, instead of being 8%, was 5%? That means that we check up on our members. I've had lots of people come to me and they say, Ken, why don't we just increase and encourage our people to stay? Why don't we? Why don't we? We've heard people talk about this week about, well, they just didn't show up. They just didn't come in. You know, we remove members for non-payment of dues. Ed Murray, did I get your name right? Murphy. I'm standing up here in front of 1 million people, Ed. Ed Murphy works at Costco. He simply said one simple thing. We run credit cards for our clubs. Watch if we don't have credit cards for our clubs soon. Because these are things that we can do to help people be automated. Help people do this. If we decrease our retention, we would only have 3,600 members dropped. And what if every club just brought in 3 members? There's 2,600 clubs in Optimist International right now. Sometimes we talk about the members bringing in members, but what if each club just committed to themselves to say, we're going to bring in 3 members this year? Even with the retention, and we're going to try to keep the people we have. Now that means you're going to have to quit serving chicken fried steak to every meal to some of our older folks. We may need a little bit more healthier diets. But if we simply do those things right there, I want you to look at this number that pops up there. That's 12,400 members. That's 12,400 members to the good. Because basically, if I throw those numbers up there, we would be sitting at 84,462 next year at this convention. 12,000 members. That is not a hard number to hit. That actually puts us even closer to that goal of 100,000 members by the time 2019 comes along. I don't know who the president's going to be in 2019, but I'd love to tell him, hey, congratulations, how do you do with 125,000 members? Wouldn't that be great to have? Now, a lot of you are kind of sitting there going, well, okay, so how do we do that? Ken, we're still struggling. It's going to take some innovation. It's going to take some possible change. There is a picture at the Pearl Harbor Memorial. There's a museum before you go out to the Arizona. How many of y'all been out there to the museum at Pearl Harbor? All right, fantastic. To our neighbors to the north and to the Caribbean District, December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor was bombed by Japanese planes. Many went down, brought the United States into the war. Lots of people lost their lives that day. So it's very powerful to us Americans. Well, what was interesting to me is seeing out there at that Pearl Harbor Memorial, there's a picture within the museum of a man standing up on a hill above the harbor. And he's standing with a big cannon. I mean a big cannon. That cannon probably could knock a ship out of the water, could definitely do some damage to any ship that tried to come in to Pearl Harbor. And this man, you could see him standing there with his Smokey Bear hat, at attention, sunrise, watching diligently, passionately to protect the ships in that harbor. December 7th, 1941, 7 a.m. Could you imagine what that man must have been thinking? Standing there with his cannon ready to fire at any ship that comes in. And that morning, what does he hear? He hears brrrr, and he realizes it's not a ship. It's planes. It's multiple planes. I wasn't there. I could just imagine. Did the man actually look to the sky, see the planes, look at his cannon, completely capable cannon, and think to himself, what's this going to do? I've got a cannon. I got multiple planes. I could probably knock a couple out of the air. And this man, this is no question to this man's dedication. He would be willing to risk his life, and he probably gave his life that day doing things that he could. He was passionate about what he was doing, but the thing that he had to work with was not the best it could be at that time. We are in the 21st century. There's some things that we have to do about innovation. There's some things that we need to look at to say, what is it we can change? Whether it be technology, whether it be Facebook, internet, social media, whatever the case is, we've got to be thinking about what is it we can do slightly different to reach out. And I want to tell you something real quick. We are. And before many of you sit here and go, okay, well, I look around, I see more gray hairs in the room. I made a comment this morning to our president-elects and our lieutenant governors, and I said, I was going through the room and said, how many of you guys actually joined an Optimist club to be a leader in the Optimist club? Now, you think about that, you yourself may go, really? I joined to do good work and do my service projects. But I asked that question, and all of a sudden, Ashley raised her hand. And it was followed by KJ and my hand's sweaty, I think it's Eric. Ashley, KJ, Eric, are you guys in the room? Could y'all stand up real quick? Ashley's over there, KJ's here. I'm not seeing Eric. Look at their faces. $25, $24, $19. Thank you, guys. Don't tell me we're not reaching out to the millennials. There are people ready to join our clubs, and they don't want to just join. They want to lead. We need to get them. We need them. But we got to be ready to work with them because they got some creative ideas. We got some great resources. It works both ways. I think that is fantastic. That is our future right there. And that is our current. Along those innovation lines, there's a story in Steve Jobs' book, the guy who created Apple. You all know what Apple is? Not what you eat, chomp, chomp, chomp. No. But the iPhones, the iPads. Steve Jobs, when he was coming up with the iPhone, he came out with it, and he really wanted to go here. But the thing was, he would put it in his pocket, and it was made of real glass. And for those at BlackBerry, I'm sorry, we're talking Steve Jobs, but just a good story. Put it in his pocket, and it would scratch with the keys because it was glass. It would scratch. So he told his people, he said, I need something that won't scratch. And they did some research, and they found out that there was this thing called Gorilla Glass. Gorilla Glass would not scratch. Thing was, nobody made Gorilla Glass. They just had a patent. Corning Glass had a patent. Anybody heard of Corning Glass? Yeah, they make windows. They make glass. They weren't making Gorilla Glass, though. So Steve Jobs said, all right. So he said, I'm going to call the CEO of Corning Glass. This is Steve Jobs. Got on the phone, looked up the 1-800 number for Corning Glass, and called Corning Glass and said, I need to talk to the CEO. Now, if you've ever tried to call a 1-800 number, do you think Steve Jobs got through to the CEO of Corning Glass? No. Story goes that basically he was upset because he didn't get to talk to the CEO of Corning Glass, so he put it out in a press release. The CEO of Corning Glass found out about it, and he said, holy cow, I need to talk to Steve Jobs. So what does the CEO of Corning Glass do? He called the 1-800 number of Apple, yes. Says, I need to talk to Steve Jobs. Eventually, they got together. Not quickly, but they got together. And it was interesting because, as the story goes in the book that Steve Jobs' biography was out there, was that he sat with the CEO of Corning Glass. And he told him, here's what I need. I need about 2 million of little pieces of glass like this. Corning Glass, the guy's the CEO of Corning Glass, going, okay, that's great, but we can't do that. We make big glass. We make different kind of glass. We can't totally change our operations to start making that many things of this little glass, and you want it by when? Steve Jobs sat there and he looked at him, and he had learned this trick of not blinking. And he stared at the CEO of Corning Glass, and he said, "Don't be afraid. You can do it." And he stared at him. And the CEO of Corning Glass says, but Steve Jobs said, "Hey, don't be afraid. You can do it." And the story goes that the CEO of Corning Glass went back and he pulled in his head of his manufacturer and he said, "Here's the deal. We're going to make millions of these little glass things, and we're going to have them ready within the next 2 months." And the guys were like, "Are you kidding me? Do you know what we're going to do?" And the CEO stood up and he looked at him and says, "Don't be afraid. You can do it." Now, the great thing about that, and they say that the staring actually probably got it done, but they said the great thing about it, think about who was the most innovative in this project. Apple was innovative because they created something brand new, but think about this from Corning's perspective. They already had a good project. They had a great product. They made glass. It was solid. It was good. It kept the dollars down. Their stock did this constantly. It was a very solid product. It went up during hurricanes, but it was very solid. You know what their stock did when they started producing Gorilla Glass? Through the roof. A mature, solid organization took a chance, made a risk and multiple risks, and they stepped out there and they said, "This is what we're going to do and where we're going to go." That should be us. Everybody tells us, we met with the CEOs, and Ron, it's one of the privileges of being your president. We get to meet with the other service organizations. A lot of them, Civitan, Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis, JCs, many of the other service organizations. And we sat in a room, they put numbers on the table, and I got tickled at Benny because he was excited because all the other service organizations last year had significant drops, 8, 9, some in the double digits of drops, of dropping their membership down. We were at 3% down. We are number one in the least number of drops, so that's a positive. That's a positive. But those guys sat there with me, and of course, a lot of them kept looking at me going, "You're 45, what do you know?" And I said, "I'm not 12. So I know a few things." But they kept asking, they said, "So what are you going to do next year?" And I said, "We're going to grow." And so that's pretty naive. I said, "No, I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist, and we own that. And when we show you what to do, thank us later." And they looked at me and they kept telling me that, and I said, "I dream the impossible dream. I fight the unbeatable foe. I bear unbearable sorrow. I go where the brave cannot go. We right the unrightable wrong. We love the one known from afar. We try when our arms are too weary. We reach the unreachable star. And this is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to strive for the right with unquestionable pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know this will only be true when I'm laid to my rest, that my heart will lie weary in peace when they lay to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one group, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with their last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable stars. And I said, "That's Optimist. That's Optimist. You know, impossible, unwritable, unbeatable, hopeless, those aren't optimistic terms. Those are terms given to us by the world who doesn't believe otherwise. Those people who think that once thought the moon was unreachable. Have we been there? Those are the people who once thought that Mars was just a place that they could see. Have we been there? With innovation and creation and a sizable goal, we can get to where we need to be. It's not just a number that we mention. These clubs do good work because that's the thing that we do. Our clubs really are passionate, and our members are passionate about what we do, and that's why we do the things that we do. And we are the optimists, and we should lead the way. Because at the end of the day, if somebody asks you, why have you given, and I will give so much of my time, talents, and money to volunteer to bring out the best in children, because I believe that the giving of myself will benefit my community, my nation, and mankind. Who am I? I will develop my mind, my body, my soul so that I will be so strong that nothing can disturb my peace of mind. Who am I? I will talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person that I meet when I am struggling to see it myself. And when my body hurts, economy's a little bleak, I will still talk these positive things because who am I? I will dig deep and look hard to make all my friends feel that there is something in them, especially when they are struggling to see it themselves. Because who am I? I will look at the sunny side of everything and make my optimism come true, even on the cloudiest days and the darkest of nights. Who am I? I am an optimist. I will condition my mind to work and think only of the best. I will settle for nothing less than myself. And the best will be given. Nothing that I do except the best in everything that I do. Because who am I? I will fervently celebrate the wins and the accomplishments as others, just as much as I celebrate my own. And when we work as a team, I will rejoice with great energy. Because who am I? I will not be bogged down with mistakes made in the past, nor will I let them stop me in the future. I will see them as a stepping stone to go to that next level that I never thought I could reach. Because who am I? And I will share the gift of joy that only I can give, and that is the gift of my smile to every person I meet. Because who am I? And I will spend so much time working on making myself better me than I've ever been, that I don't have any time to criticize anybody else because I'm concerned about what I can do for everyone around me. Because who am I? Worry and fear are too small for me because I am living my life in nobility where anger cannot touch me. Because who am I? Who am I? Who am I? You bet we're optimists. And let me tell you something. Whatever's held for us in the future, don't worry. Don't be afraid. We can do it. Thank you. Merci.